So I'm sure if you find yourself here, you have an interest or a curiosity around all things animal communication, communicating with the earth, the plants, all of the elementals of nature, and in general, just the spiritual connection that we can have with the animals in our lives. I have always felt like animal communication and learning that path of telepathy, how to communicate through frequency and energy is something that found me. I would say it was something that I always deeply felt in the core of my being, that it was something that was deeply possible. I just always felt like I wasn't special enough to be able to communicate with animals in that way. So when I say that I feel like animal communication found me, if you guys don't know, I mean, I've spent the last 20 years doing animal chiropractic work and really specializing in working on horses. And through working with horses, what I noticed that started to happen is when I would put my hands on them and hold an intention in my heart, which was really, how can I best help you today? Like, how can I best help you in your body, and how can I help you thrive? I started to notice that I would see images. It was almost like watching a movie play through my mind. And the animals were sending me images of things that had either happened to them, occasionally, sometimes things that had happened with their humans or to their humans specifically. And it became sort of my first inkling of, I think animals are communicating with me. And throughout my 20s, I had had intuitives that multiple times come forward and tell me that I was an animal communicator. And while I thought, I'm like, well, wouldn't that be wonderful? Like, wouldn't that be such a fun thing to be able to do? And really the thought of how my life could expand if that was possible. But I didn't know how. So, because I was early into my chiropractic career, I didn't really have the time or the resources to invest in something like that. So, I started just playing with the idea of, what if I just validate all of these experiences that I'm having, like with animals sending me pictures? And by validate, what I mean, it's, what if instead of me being in denial of this or trying to talk myself out of this experience that I'm having, what if I just accept that something kind of magical might be here? So, with some of the human clients that I felt safe with, when I would have these experiences, I would ask them, and I didn't feel confident saying, like, hey, I think your horse is communicating with me, but I would ask them, like, whatever I would see in my mind, I would ask them if it was an experience that had happened. And what was pretty incredible is, as these experiences started to get validated, it's how I started to gain like little gleams of confidence that I really think I can do this, or there's something here that I want to dive deeper into. So I started really playing with, if I ask a question with my mind and with my intention, if I send it to the animal, like, what do I see, hear, feel, or know? Anything, like, what is sort of happening within my physical body and what is coming forward. And it's something that I really had to practice and train myself to do. So, what I would do is, like for chiropractic, I would watch a horse move, I would motion palpate their body. But before I would do motion palpation, which is the tactile feeling of how the vertebra move in their body, I would ask the horse and ask the body where they were restricted before I touched them. And then I would go and palpate their body to see, and it required me to be quite discerning and to be very honest of, is what I'm hearing matching with what I feel when I bring my more literal senses to the table? And it was a beautiful way, and it's to refine, what, from for the most part, like, what am I hearing? Like, what is the body and what is the animal sharing with me? So, if anyone has followed with quite a bit of my story, about 5 years into my practice, I had one of my parents get ill. And through that experience, someone recommended that I go see a shaman. And I've always been just very open to different modalities of healing. So, I had no idea really what a shaman was, but it sounded like an incredible experience. And it was something that I will say forever changed my life. I definitely grew up an intuitive, very sensitive child. I didn't really understand that my sensitivity was my intuition. I just thought that I perceived the world in a way that somehow was wrong. because it just felt very different. I didn't really understand why people behave the way that they did. So after the shamanic healing session, so much of the information that came forward with the shaman really brought all of my life experiences. For me, it felt like into really sharp focus of me really understanding all the little sensitive ways that I thought made me different, wrong or bad, um, were actually this very unique intuitive skill set. So I decided to go through a 2-year shamanic training program. I went with the Four Winds, which at the time everything was done in person, and it took a couple years to get through the program. But as we were learning all the techniques to shamanic healing, what it really means to walk that path and to do your inner work, and really learning how to journey and do healings for other people, that also gave me a new layer of skill set for working with my intuition and going on journeys and really learning how to tap into my mind's eye and to really follow the images that energy and spirit were sending my way. And that really amplified my animal communication abilities. And over the years of just quietly practicing, working with clients when I had the extra space and time in my life, really allowed me to gain like deeper comfort with learning how to navigate my energy body and my own intuition. And that organically evolved into channeling. And for me, the difference between, just being an intuitive or an animal intuitive and channeling is that with intuition or with animal communication, I feel like I'm literally having a conversation with the personality aspect of an animal. So there's definitely like this back and forth movement of, with my intention, I ask a question with my mind, give it direction, send it towards the animal, and then be open to receiving information back, much like having a conversation with another human. It's all happening through the subtle senses instead of the literal senses. But when we begin to channel, we're actually merging our frequency and our energy with another being. So there no longer feels like a separation of self. It becomes more of an embodied experience where it's almost like as soon as the thought to ask a question moves through my mind, it's like the answer is just flowing through my energy. So I always say channeling feels like a very merged experience. And through that, I think because I've always had this feeling of animals being so much more than just animal companions and friends, but really being able to step into channeling with animals, the higher wisdom of their soul began to come forward, and this deep, kind of rich spiritual perspective, um, not only of their lives, but of their human counterparts, really began to come forward. So that has really been the birthplace of my practice now, which I call what I do soul channeling. Because to me, whether I'm doing it for a human or for their animal, it really is allowing myself to surrender into a channeled state, to tap into the higher consciousness of another being and allowing the soul's wishes to come forward so that we can have more direct alignment with the higher aspect of our being. But it really helps bring, connection, communion, and harmony, within the entirety of your being, which can really help you find a pathway forward. All right, guys, I wish you a beautiful day ahead.